Okay, hey internet. This is Bill from artroomtech.blogspot.com. This is my first YouTube video I've ever made, so bear with me here. Uh, I am currently a student at Brooklyn College where I'm studying in the master's program for art education. And I'm doing this blog for part of my coursework. I chose the topic of tech, so technology integration in the art room, looking at different tools, resources, some tips and tricks that I've picked up, and not only just in the art room but beyond. Things that you'll probably find useful in your day-to-day life. So I thought a good place to start with this blog would be looking at a bit of research that I did in a class last semester where I was surveying uh, technology in the art room around the world. So what I did was, in my observation, I realized that each teacher approaches tech integration differently based on their own styles or experiences, the same as they approach teaching their subject matter. So to find out, I created a brief 5-question survey with Google Survey, which I'll be talking about more in another video, which was sent out through some networks such as Facebook, Reddit, and also just personally networking it to some friends and family. So the survey questions that I put out were: how long have you been a teacher, and in what city, state, or country do you teach art? Additionally, what grade levels do you teach? 2, in what ways do you integrate technology use in your classroom? 3, what benefits have technologies had for your students or practices within your classroom? Is there anything that was not possible to do before without technology? 4, have there been any negative side effects of technology integration in your classroom? If so, please explain. And 5, just any additional comments about technology. So, like I said, this was done in my first semester at Brooklyn College. In hindsight, I wish I would have maybe put the questions out there a little bit differently, but on the bright side, I think this might be a potential thesis for me down the road, so I kind of know how to tweak it now and some new things in mind, but for now, it got me a great first response. So here's a little bit of a breakdown. I got 60 responses from teachers across 18 different countries. A little infographic of how that you can break down that information even further. You can see they're color coded. The green dots are 1 to 9 years of teaching experiences, 10 to 19 in blue, 20 to 29 in red, and we have one gentleman over here from Minnesota, 36 years of teaching experience. So shout out to him. So 18 of these teachers were from New York. I think that's because I was able to, that's my home state. So it was people who I had known or alumni of the Brooklyn College program who were easy to network to. So looking on in Asia, we got responses from South Korea, from Japan, from China, Vietnam, Cambodia, Qatar, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. In Europe, from Spain, Germany, Macedonia, Hungary, and England. Some responses from Australia and New Zealand. And shout out to the one teacher in Venezuela on the left, and the one teacher from Cairo, Egypt on the right. So, a breakdown of some of the information that I got. So you can see it's a pretty good split. On the right, we have the grade levels taught. There's a little bit of overlap, but it's a pretty nice range. It's not too stacked with the elementary or secondary level kids. And for the years of teaching experience, the average teacher's experience in the survey was 11.3 years. Now, comparing that to the New York City Independent Budget Office, the average year's experience among New York City public school teachers is 10.6 as of the 2012 to 2013 school year. So, some people might have assumed that I was going to be getting very young teachers because I was surveying through technology, but actually, I got a pretty well-rounded breakdown of teachers. Again, only 60 of them, but a really good starting place. So the survey generated responses about tech use that range really widely from, uh, in what ways do you integrate and use technology? I don't. What benefits does it have? It doesn't. Have there been any negative side effects? It doesn't make a better student. Just no, 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 no technology. To the other end of the spectrum, where we have a teacher here who's teaching a digital painting course using Photoshop and Wacom. I'm not sure how to pronounce this actually. Wacom tablets, I'll have to research that more for another video. But, on the other end of the spectrum, completely technology reliant courses. Now, these are the only two examples that I'm going to show the full survey range, and the reason that this is interesting is because both of these teachers work in the same school district. And I know that because the one in the second example, the digital painting teacher, I did my undergrad at SUNY New Paltz with her, and she's actually not primarily a digital artist. And thirdly, it kind of tells us in the first response about how we sometimes take technology for granted. Even in the most general sense, this teacher was using email for communicating. She took the survey online. And I spoke with my friend, and the teacher in this district is actually using, projectors with PowerPoints, online resources, etc. So here's a little bit of a breakdown. I'm going to go over some of the most highly responded technology usage that I heard about, and I'm going to talk briefly about each of them. I'll talk about more of them in some videos to come, but I'm just going to give a quick overview of everything here. So 33 out of 60 teachers reported using a smartboard in their classroom. Smartboards are an interactive touchscreen whiteboards. If you're in a classroom right now, I'm sure you've heard of them at least. And some of the benefits of using a smartboard are they're interactive, so they can be responsive at the board while you're doing presentations. You can write on them and then save it just like you were to screenshot something on your screen. And if you don't know what that is, I might make a video about some of those basics later on. And there's a convenience of access to being able to click around right at the board. So if you want to click the next YouTube video, you don't have to walk back to the computer. Now, the average cost of a smartboard is about $5,099, which comes out to about $5,595 after New York State tax. In my opinion, smartboards are not really the best tech use that you can have. I kind of feel like they're just a very expensive surface level way to look like you're using tech integration, but they're not really the most efficient way. But I'll talk about that more in another video. So 32 out of 60 teachers reported to use Google Drive in their classroom. Google Drive is going to be something I'm going to talk about a lot on this blog. I'm going to show some of the ways that I use it in my classroom and ways that I've seen other people using it as well. So Google Drive is a file storage and synchronization tool created by Google, if you don't know. Google Drive includes a suite of collaborative resources and tools such as Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Spreads, Google Translate, Google Surveys, Pixlr, and Google Photos, just to name a few. So many teachers said that Google Drive is used best between students and teachers, distributing resources, worksheets, rubrics, and for students to turn in their assignments. And the best part about it all is it's free, as long as you have a device that can connect to the internet. So next up we have iPads. I was a little bit surprised to hear this, but 20 out of 60, or 1/3 of teachers, are using iPads in their classroom. 4 of these teachers were in a one-to-one iPad school. So as you can see, a teacher in guitar, for example, has been using iPads and iPhones to have elementary students recording and writing, reflecting on their artwork as they're completing each unit. And then you have artists like David Hockney, who's a really big name, who's been making art on his iPad and having it featured in some very big name galleries, such as the Royal Academy in England. Talking about how iPad art can be a serious tool. So some of us art teachers might be quick to dismiss it, but we should consider if an artist like David Hockney is using it in his own art making practices, maybe we should take a look at what can be done and give it a shot. There's one of his artworks right there. And next up, we have Adobe Photoshop and the Adobe Suite. 24 out of 60 teachers report to use Adobe Photoshop or the Adobe Suite in their classrooms. 3 of 60 of them report to using tablets in combination with Adobe Photoshop for digital painting. Some teachers say they use Photoshop primarily for graphic design or digital painting, while others are using it as a support tool. And the cost, for school bundles, the cost will always vary. So if you're a student, you can get the Adobe Creative Cloud for $9.99 a month, which is great. That's what I use. I'll be talking about some lessons and things you can do with Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator in some of my other videos coming up soon. So then that brings us to educational social media. So we have Edmodo and Google Classroom. 15 out of 60 teachers are using a newer trend of educational-based social media, such as Edmodo or Google Classroom. 90% of young Americans are using social media today, and 65% of American adults are using social media. So if you haven't heard about this, I'm going to be going into it more later. Google Classroom and Edmodo are both free. Uh, I'm going to talk about Edmodo since it has, over 60 million more users than Google Classroom, with 74 million, founded in 2008. It's set up to fill and operate just like social media that we're all familiar with, but it's geared all towards education. So students can join the classroom. It's moderated by the teachers. The teachers use it to post assignments, reminders, surveys, quizzes. Parents can get signed up on Edmodo and be joined in on the classroom, see what's going on in the conversations, real time. This is best used when the whole school is using it. It becomes routine for the kids and they really take ownership of their learning. I'll be talking more about this in another video to come. So next up we have something called the flipped classroom. Now we got a few reports for this, and the idea for this is that rather than going to a lecture in class and then going home with your homework and activities, you're watching the lecture at home, absorbing it at your own speed, and when you come into class, you're ready to do classroom activities with the supervision of your teacher. In my school at the International School of Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, our math teacher started using this system in our first year there, and he got some great results. He had some terrific things to say. And I'll be doing a video about this later on, too. Okay, and these were some of the other technology resources mentioned, and this is just the beginning of it. This wasn't all the research that I gathered together, this wasn't the whole presentation, but this is just kind of a video that I thought would be relevant to this blog and kind of a nice introduction to what I want to do out here. So again, this is only the beginning, and that about wraps it up. YouTube is super weird because people are just kind of up here talking to themselves and assuming that anyone's listening. But if you are listening, and you have any comments or questions and you're not my professor, feel free to leave them, and I'll see what I can do for you. I guess it's like a phone call, so bye bye.